Calling in order the city council meeting of Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. Please call the roll.
Mr. Newell?
Here.
Ms. Zatrek?
Here.
Ms. Waldman? Ms. Goded? Mr. Lemay?
Here.
Mr. Gentili?
Here.
Dr. Long? Here.
Okay, thank you. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first agenda item this evening, good evening, everybody, is a motion. We look for a motion to award a contract to Mason Mechanical for HVAC repair in the fire department. This is the contract that's being supported in part by our NOPEC grant. Chief or Joe, you want to take us through this?
Yeah, we utilized the service department. Jim was kind enough to use his experts to look at our heating system. So I got two quotes, one from Smiley One and the other from Mason Mechanical. And Mason Mechanical came in under Smiley One by about $1,000. And that came in at $29,550. We had $45,000 budgeted for the project. And then we have $18,000 to apply from NOPEC towards it.
You're putting in a new condenser and whatnot, or is this a big project?
So, yeah, actually, the original system is a 70s vintage heat exchanger style, so it's
Really?
terribly inefficient.
Huh.
So it actually uses hot water to heat through the blower.
Really?
So what happens is many times is that you're heating and cooling at the same time, or trying to cool the heat or heat the cool. So
It was a good idea in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so could we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Newell?
Yes.
Ms. Zatrek?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Long? Yes.
All right, and keeping the chief on deck, next we seek a resolution declaring the necessity of renewing the 4-point mill tax levy for the fire department. We've talked about this before. Do you want to refresh us again, Joe, or?
Well, unless they have questions about the levy, this would be more of a Steve bait, and he could explain the process, but we first had the first piece of legislation. Then Sheila had sent that legislation down to the Budget Commission. They sent back the documents, and this is the second piece of legislation that will allow it to go on the ballot. And if you have any of those legislation questions, Steve could handle those. Any kind of levy questions,
Right.
Chief Ryan.
Okay, thank you for updating us as to where we are in the process, Joe. Anyone have any questions?
Just, I have a question. In the first whereas, it says that it was renewed in several years and then replaced. What's the difference between renewal and replacement?
Replacement picks up the increase in valuation. Renewal keeps it at the valuation. House Bill 940 keeps your levy even, and
Okay.
it's not a tax increase for the residents if you have a renewal levy. If you replace it, it is an increase to pick up the additional valuation.
Valuation.
The thing that you lose if you do the increase on valuation through a replacement is you lose the reimbursement from the state for the, what do they call that?
The homestead rollback.
Oh, the rollbacks, yeah.
Okay, so do we have to do one or the other every 5 years? Or is there a
Yes.
schedule to it every 5 years?
Well, the maximum it can go out is 5 years. You could do
Okay.
it for less.
Okay,
And to have a renewal, you can't change anything, is that correct?
Say again?
You can't change any part of this. A renewal.
You
So if
can't,
I wanted to make it a 3 mil levy, can I still have a renewal or no?
you could renew and reduce, and I believe it would still be subject to the rollback. but you could not go back to the millage in the future that you started at.
Okay.
And so once you do the replacement, you lose the rollback. So another replacement doesn't cost you anything. Is that right?
Well, remember that rule didn't come into place until 2013.
Oh, okay.
So you, I believe,
We renewed in 14 and 18.
yeah, renewed in 14 and 18, which means we've kept the reimbursement from the state.
And remind me, the mechanics of the rollback, how did,
Basically, we get 11% of the millage. The state pays 11% of the millage. That was one of the things that the state got rid of, is the reimbursement for those rollbacks. So that
in
new
some,
millage, if you levy, 3 mills, that taxpayers pay the full 3 mills.
and that was just some old legislation. What was just briefly, was the policy behind the rollback was?
My understanding was that it was some certain portion of funds that go to the state are coming from this location.
Mhm.
And so if people vote to tax themselves, the state paid for some of it, 11% roughly.
Okay.
And of course, with the local government fund and the rollback, I mean, there've just been a number of policies that the state has followed where dollars that used to come back to municipalities aren't coming back
Hmm.
anymore.
That was the theory originally of why it was put in place.
I believe
How many
so.
years ago? Yeah.
Another question I had, I guess, is for Joe. Do we do the math to figure out whether the renewal is better or the replacement?
Well, a replacement would bring in additional funds.
Right. And then when I say we do the math, do we calculate how much we're going to get through the rollback versus how much we would get by the increased
I
valuation?
didn't run the numbers. I know for a fact we'd get more if we did a replacement. But in essence, we would also be charging our residents more.
What my recommendation
Which is
would
what we
always be
did.
to adopt a separate tax, a new tax.
Oh,
So you at least keep the revenue, state's
Right.
revenue
so
coming
can you
back.
do 2 fire levies?
Absolutely,
separate
if you
fire?
could.
Okay.
But we don't need it. I mean,
Right,
it's
right.
like-
No, I get it. I'm just trying to understand
Steve, I have a
the whole
question
process.
on the vote language.
Yeah.
Section 1, I eventually parsed through it, but I understand how it works, I think. But why in the next to last line, 40 cents per 100? That, no one thinks about their property in per 100.
Right.
They think about it per 1,000.
Right.
So why is this cents per 100?
Per 100,000.
It says, no, it's 40 cents for each $100 of valuation.
Yeah.
It's just a weird,
What line are you in?
I'm in
I'm,
the ballot
page
language on
two.
page
Yeah.
2.
Oh,
line-
Yeah. That was the change that the state made.
The state requires that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than, $4 per 1,000, which would let people calculate in their head.
Right.
But that's mandated.
When a lot of times school levies, they go down to the $100.
But it's
Because
usually,
it makes it sound like less money.
yeah, that's what I think it's unfair about it. It's just,
But that's the language they have now.
but this is required language.
Yeah.
That's written by the state or by
Right.
the board.
And so, we put that in there just so that council members know what it's going to say. If we just said, put this on, the Board of Elections under state law must put that language in. So we're just reflecting what the state would require anyway.
In ballot language for a local issue. I just find that a bit odd that they're reaching down and putting,
Everybody is following the same thing. I think it's intentionally done to make it more difficult to read, thinking
yeah,
it would be harder to pass.
but we can't change it to $4 for
No.
1,000.
You got to follow what the state law says.
Okay.
Well, Jim, remember that we have to ask for our advances every year because of the state of Ohio rules.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
just, it's, a little bit out of date, let's say.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, do we have anything else? We have a motion for adoption of the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Not hearing any, roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atrap?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Chantilly?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Okay, next, last week, council passed a motion requesting Mr. Byron to draft legislation which would bar the sale of recreational marijuana in the city of Pepper Pike. And Mr. Byron has drafted that, and we've submitted to council. It's here tonight on first reading. And any questions to Mr. Byron as to how it's drafted, or discussion between yourselves regarding the legislation?
I have one question on definitions. Is there a definition of recreational marijuana?
No, it's adult use cannabis under the state code.
Okay. So even though we refer to recreational marijuana.
Right.
We don't have to define it.
That's the common understanding. The whereas clause is reflecting what people sort of understood it to be. The actual legal language is from the state law. So, and the state law distinguishes between marijuana and medical marijuana and then adult use cannabis. They use the different words
I see.
for the same plant material.
Thank you. That explains.
And then there was one of the things, the cultivators, processors, and retail dispensaries are all rolled into adult use cannabis operators. So you don't have to have those separate definitions when you're dealing with the adult. It's just that the way that law was written. Jim's probably having trouble with the drafting of it, and I
Well,
don't disagree with him, but we're tracking state law.
So my trouble is in 866.02 Prohibition A. We use the phrase medical marijuana.
Mhm.
Wouldn't it be better just to say marijuana?
No,
Why not?
because medical marijuana is the way the state law defines it. So
So they can cultivate non-medical marijuana?
I don't know that such a thing exists. It would probably be adult use cannabis if they
Well,
were
that
growing something.
to me, I can look this up, but it looked like it would create a gap. Because marijuana is defined term under state law.
Mhm.
So wouldn't you want it as broad as possible?
Well, doesn't B pick up the other side of that though, Jim?
But why?
Medical marijuana is in the first part. And the
Well, they're
recreational-
separate and apart. Remember, you are prohibiting something that the state law permits. If you're not doing what the state law permits, you're otherwise prohibited under the law from doing it. So if somebody is growing, let's say they're trying to become a retail dispensary for marijuana, and they don't qualify either under medical marijuana or adult use cannabis licenses, they're breaking the law already. That you don't need a local enforcement issue to address that. It's already illegal. So this just says those things which are legal under state law are not permitted in Pepper Pike.
What we had when they first passed the medical marijuana is we put in place a 1-year moratorium on the establishment of medical marijuana in this city, and then it just lapsed. They issued the licenses. It wasn't going to be an issue anymore. They weren't issuing more licenses. I think what Steve's done here is, thoughtful, because there are two ways of selling marijuana in this state, either through medical marijuana or
Two legal ways.
two legal ways. Thank you, Mr. Byron. Adult use cannabis operators. So he's picking up both with A and B. I don't see a problem with that.
The Westlake law is, the way they do it is all the way through. It says adult use marijuana.
What's that?
The Westlake law, their law refers to it through the entire thing as adult use marijuana, which is what you're saying is recreational.
Well, they can call it what they want. What this does is it tracks the language of 3780, which is adult use cannabis. So, but they can call it that. I mean, they can define it. I mean, if you want to call it marijuana, you can do that. All this does is it very carefully tracks the language of the state code so that it says, you know, these legal things that are authorized under state code, they're not permitted in Pepper Pike.
And this is broad enough. I looked up the Avon Lake legislation, and they referred to like different zoning areas and that it was prohibited there. And they seem to be a little bit more specific with the prohibition. So I just want to make sure that like ours being more broad, we're just blanketing everything with that. There's no
Right.
loophole within there that.
No, this is as broad as it gets.
Okay.
Well, if it said marijuana rather than marijuana, it wouldn't hurt anything, because that's a broader term, right?
Say again?
If it said marijuana rather than medical marijuana,
Yeah,
it would
Right.
hurt something? It would make it worse?
no. But what this is doing is saying, you know, those state laws that allow these types of uses, they're not permitted in the city.
It makes sense to me to do what Steve is saying, because the state law says you can do this, and this is defined.
Right.
We're saying you can't do this. And it's exactly the same words. It makes sense to just.
And the state law says
Negate the state law.
the municipality has the
by-
authority
with using
to
the same
prohibit.
word, Using the same words.
What's the code section that allows it, Steve? Do you have that?
For medical marijuana, it's 3796, chapter 3796.
That's where it says we're allowed to.
The medical marijuana law, where you can get a licensed facility,
Yeah.
processing, cultivation, or
But
retailing, is chapter
code
3796.
section that says we can say no is where.
That same language is in both chapters.
3796 and 3780?
Right.
Okay.
Just make sure. There's language in those chapters that say that locally this can be
Yes.
overturned. Okay. Got it.
Steve, do we need to add like THC and all that stuff? Or
No.
that's covered in?
Those are covered within those terms. And they have the, specifications and that sort of thing, I believe, in the medical marijuana provisions.
In whatever form.
So, when you talk about adult use cannabis, that means a certain amount of THC that, I know that there are CBD that do not have THC that I don't think are covered by this, even though they may be derived from the marijuana
Mhm.
plant.
Okay.
So those terms have specific meanings under state law.
And the penalty is also state law, third degree misdemeanor?
I'd have to go back and look at that.
Do we have flexibility to make that? what?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And why choose that rather than first degree?
Whatever municipal corporation who put this together had that as the number. I stole this from somebody, but it was good. It was the best of the, some of the other ones aren't as, I think, cutting to the chase in terms of
Could you
regulation.
maybe next week just let us, or next meeting, what other communities are doing and what's third degree versus first degree and
A third degree misdemeanor is up to a $500 fine and up to 60 days in jail. Fourth degree is 30 days in jail, $250 fine.
And what's first?
6 months in jail and a $100 fine.
I think a point is that under the state code, as I understand it, other than personal growing, the sale of cannabis, marijuana, requires a state license. So the amount of the penalty, they're not going to be able to set up a store without that license. What this does is basically tell anyone, you can't go up to one of our commercial areas, rent a space, and think you're gonna be selling pot out of it, because they're gonna have to fall under all of the state regulations of being an operator. So they're never gonna, by prohibiting this, the landlords, they're just not gonna be letting spaces for these.
that's all this is doing as opposed to someone dealing out of their pickup truck
Well, that sort of illegal activity, you can't do that under the state cannabis law.
Yeah, right.
We don't have to prohibit that. That's already, that remains illegal.
Yeah. So this is growing, processing, or dispensing for like commercial. And the second one is adult use cannabis operators. What does that mean? what's
That incorporates cultivators, processors, and retail dispensaries. Those terms are called out in the medical marijuana chapter.
Mhm.
Adult use cannabis operator incorporates those items.
But does it also incorporate the non-medical that are just set up under license?
Yes. Well, that's, if you're either a retail dispensary or you're processing or you're cultivating,
Okay.
if you're in that licensed space.
So the regime, I'm just trying to understand the intersection between A and B.
Mhm.
A is for medical
Yes.
and B is for everything else? Any other commercial operations, whether medical or otherwise?
Well, those are licensed by the state of Ohio. So the adult use cannabis operator is someone who holds an adult use cannabis license.
But for medical or otherwise? Right.
It may not be for medical. It may
That's what
just
I'm
be
saying. It
whatever
doesn't
the
have to be
license,
for
right?
Right. The anticipation as they're rolling out this law is that because of the regulatory things that have to be, conditions have to be met, that it's only the medical, the current medical distributors who are set up to do this. Now downstream, other people may be able to not be medical distributors and set themselves up successfully to be just an adult use distributor. So by separating this, we're catching both approaches to it.
But the adult use, the second category would capture the recreational,
Right.
non-medical.
That is not, that in the future may not have a medical component to the operation.
So that's the B, part B is that regime is regulating the non-medical.
Yes. Yes. So if we already had a medical one here, which we don't, but if we had a medical one, by adopting B, they could not set that facility up to sell recreational. Couldn't do it.
And part B, or that new statute, 3780, drafts upon or takes parts of 3796 and uses it,
Yes.
even though it doesn't pertain to doesn't need to pertain to medical.
Right.
Steve, what about, I know we are doing retail sales, but how about, are people allowed to drive under the influence of marijuana?
That's a different issue. You can't drive impaired,
Okay.
and
then
those rules are not affected by this legislation.
Okay, and then the smoking is the same as cigarette smoking, like it's,
Well, I mean, there's a separate penalty for smoking marijuana in public. You could be charged with that. But again, this does not address
Right,
that.
right.
That would be
Okay.
governed by state law.
all right,
Right. Someone can't go into our park and start smoking pot.
right,
That's that's prohibited.
okay. Just making sure.
Even under the new law.
Right.
And independent of our restriction on tobacco smoke, our state law restriction on tobacco smoke, that's kind of the same thing.
Well, the state law restriction on tobacco is run through the health district. So that's a completely different,
Okay.
I think you call the Board of Health.
But the new law prohibits the public smoking.
Yes.
Okay.
If someone wants to have an edible and go out in public having ingested the edible, they could do so long as they weren't impaired. If they're impaired, then it's like a public intox type situation.
Okay.
Well,
Am I wrong?
The use in public is prohibited. It's a minor misdemeanor. So,
Well, what is the use? I'm not saying you ingest it in public. I'm saying if you're in your house.
oh, no. Yeah, but if this is public use, if you
Right, you
ingest
couldn't,
it.
you couldn't go eat your brownies in the backyard of the
In the park.
Right. Well, that's a different conversation we've had tonight.
Yeah, no kidding. I wasn't here for the discussion last week, but I did listen to it online. I appreciate, I believe, Scott, was it you who brought up the issue? I had seen the Cleveland.com article about it, and I was hoping that somebody might catch it. So I thank you, Steve, for drafting this. I think that we're on our way. I think that, there are going to be cultivators, processors, retail dispensaries that are going to be looking for communities to be able to set up shop. And I think just letting them know that this is not the community for them to come to is, I think, a good standard to set. So I appreciate the work that went in last week on this. Thank you.
I think it's likely that the adult use will be licensed in the locations where medical marijuana is currently being sold.
Yeah.
They're already approved from a zoning standpoint, so I don't know if they're looking for additional locations. But this makes clear that Pepper Pike would not be one of those.
Yeah.
additional-
And I appreciate that for our community.
Okay. We're going to have it for first reading tonight? I give it to council.
First reading. Okay. I'm going to read up on it.
Appropriate.
Next, we seek a motion to approve the Roniak Paving Inc. bid for our asphalt program. Don, want to take us through that?
Yes, we got a bid in. Roniak's the low bidder. Our estimate was $1.2 million for these streets that we have here. They were, I think, $1,154,000. We had 2 bidders that were under my estimate, and we had 6 that were slightly over. So
8 bidders?
8 bidders, which is a lot.
I'm surprised.
It was an aggressive bidding. I think we got a good price, and it's a good contractor, so
Okay.
it's solid.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll,
Yes.
Ms. Zatra,
Yes.
Mr. Lemay,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Dr. Wong.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. Next, the beautification, Parks and Beautification Committee met last night. Emmy has asked me to place on the agenda a motion to confirm candidates. Emmy, I'll turn to you.
And thanks so much, Rick. I appreciate it. We were pleased to have a number of residents apply to be members of the Parks and Beautification Committee. It's wonderful to live in a community of active and engaged citizens with a desire to volunteer. And I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to apply. Our committee had some scheduling challenges this month, so we were unable to meet to review applications until last night. Unfortunately, that meant that our nominees didn't have much time to prepare for their recognition this evening. So please excuse their absence. We take responsibility for that. But we felt that moving forward with the confirmation process was the most important. So delaying the process until next month was not really an option. So I hope you understand our desire to get this committee moving forward. The committee chose to nominate 2 impressive candidates who stood out for their experience in the subject matter of parks and beautification and their understanding of design and planning. Therefore, I'm asking council for their confirmation this evening. The first candidate is Ms. Susan Brownstein. Susan has a background in civil engineering and project management. She's also a weekly gardening columnist for Cleveland.com. She's lived in the city for almost 6 years. Her experience and knowledge will be valuable to the committee. Therefore, I would like to make a motion to confirm the nomination of Susan Brownstein to the Parks and Beautification Committee.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion? Sheila?
I get to do that.
Okay, I apologize, Rick. I don't.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Zatra?
Yes,
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
thank you. The second candidate I would like to nominate is Mr. Rick Ikoff. Rick has lived in Pepper Pike since 1981 and has volunteered in various community organizations. His extensive background in design and knowledge relating to landscape plantings, form and function will be extremely valuable, will be an extremely valuable addition to our newly formed committee. Therefore, I would like to make a motion to confirm the nomination of Rick Ikoff to the Parks and Beautification Committee.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any, roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Zatra?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
I would like to thank everyone. Thank you, council. Thank you, Mayor Bain. And I'd like to officially welcome both Rick and Susan to the Parks and Beautification Committee. We look forward to working with both of you. Hopefully you were maybe tuned in virtually. And I'm really excited to continue to move forward. So thank you, everyone. And that might serve as my update
Okay.
for committees.
Moving on then, Tony has asked that we have a discussion of the Charter Review Commission meetings. I apologize to council for both items 6 and 7. I know they came abruptly on your agenda this afternoon, but since the council members had requested it today that both these things happen, I thought we ought to make it happen. So Tony?
Yeah, I apologize too. This really just came up. A potential applicant asked whether we were going to have remote meetings or not. And I said that I didn't know whether we could or not. I asked Mr. Byron. We don't have the ability to do that right now. I guess our temporary authorization of Zoom meetings, if you want to call them that, expired. So this is just to get a sense of the members of council, whether we should have those committee meetings, commission meetings, have the ability to have them remotely. I don't have a problem with it. I think actually I think it would be a good thing if we might lose some good candidates just because of their ability to only participate remotely rather than in a meeting here in the city hall. So that's my feeling on it, but it's just, what does everybody else feel is kind of, and if there's broad consensus that we should allow this, then I think Steve would have to write legislation for us to pass next month. But that'd be in plenty of time because meetings won't start until July.
There's no prohibition against it, right?
There is.
Right now, there isn't, the state law requires people to be in attendance
For
to be counted as a quorum for a public meeting.
any public meeting.
Yes. There's no prohibition against people observing or listening or watching TV or whatever remotely, but they can't be counted as a member of the quorum. This was changed by state law temporarily during COVID, which allowed us to operate via Zoom. But then that sunset, and you let it sunset so that people have to be here.
Can we pass a law that allows us to do
Yes.
this? And could we also, I'm just going to add an extra in here. Could we also pass a law that would allow us to have our council meetings the same way?
You could.
I know other communities have done that. I attended a Moreland Hills council meeting, and many of their department heads zoomed in for the meeting. I am of the opinion in watching that interaction, it was interesting to me because it was very different than how we function with everybody being in person, with kind of that hybrid of some in person, some out of person, or remote. I think it's interesting and something to consider. I am concerned that I would want something in there that it could not be multiple meetings in a row, that maybe there was a threshold if we were to consider any type of legislation like that, that it couldn't, you would have to be in person for, it can't be multiple meetings in a row that you would be gone for and be able to participate.
And
I think that it opens up a loophole. And what I noticed was so their engineer was not there, their building inspector, they were all remote. Once the screens were gone, they were off, they weren't approachable. It changes that dynamic a little bit. So I want us to be cautious. I understand there are circumstances that it would be helpful, but I want us to really think about it.
Remember,
I
state
have a
law
question.
addresses the attendance in person of members to be counted as a member of the quorum and for voting. If you choose to have people who are consultants or employees attend remotely, that's permitted under state law now.
Okay.
It's the voting members who are bound by the sunshine law's requirements. But I understand your point.
Right. But I believe that their provision is also that their council members may be absent and still be able to participate.
I mean, I have a thought about that. I think that any legislation that Steve would draft would have to permit or not permit, or couldn't have anything like every other meeting. But that could be a rule of the commission if the commission so decides that that's the way they want to operate, that they could do that. But I don't know that we could prohibit it in the legislation that way.
Well, you could write a rule, but
Well,
Steve,
if we're going to use it for council meetings as well, I wouldn't think we would want to do that. In the circumstance that Scott found himself in, he might have been able to participate in our meetings if we had such a rule.
Yeah. Which I tend to agree that, there's just, I'm sympathetic to Emmy's point because I think we do better in person. There's more interaction, there's more give and take. You can hear them better, you see them better, whatever. It's just more productive. But I'm very sympathetic to the occasion where, Scott was in, for example, where for very good reason he couldn't be here. But I'm also sympathetic to making that not by necessity. I know part of that is good faith, to not make it a habit. But the occasional allowance of that, I think, would make us better because you're on a trip or you get stuck in an airport or something and you're like, I'd love to dial in and just participate. So Steve, have you seen anything like that where it's allowed but restricted in some manner?
well, some communities have the discretion of the chair, where the chair can make a determination. You could make it so that the body by vote permits attendance for good cause, and maybe make a motion at the beginning of the meeting that Scott's out of town for good cause and you want him to be able to participate. You could write that into the code. I mean, there are a number of ways you can do it. This is a home rule item.
Yeah. Have you seen something like that though? Any other community?
I think the standard language that I've seen permits the chair to make a determination for good cause. And
I'm open to the idea, but I would like it to be an exception, not the norm, for lots of reasons. I'm open to suggestion of how we engineer that.
let me read you one of the provisions here.
Is there, while he's looking for that, when council announced and advertised this, was there anything in that letter you composed, Tony, about in-person meetings and attendance at meetings?
No, it wasn't specified how the meetings would be conducted. I think it was assumed that they would be in person, but it wasn't stated that they would be, and it wasn't stated that they could be attended remotely. So
Do you think we'd be putting at any disadvantage people who may not have applied, thinking, oh, well, I can't go to meetings, and now we're doing it kind of after the fact on a one-off or someone who
Well, it wasn't
you
just-
wanted, yeah.
It wasn't just one person.
Okay, even two, or however many.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that there could be some element of fair play notice to people saying, oh, by the way, you don't even have to be here. And we haven't even figured out how many times they don't have to be here or what circumstances they don't have to be here. It's a
problem is-
little fraught with that.
I
It
get
strikes
that.
me listening to this
Yeah,
conversation.
it's a fair comment, but by the time we figure this out, another month will have passed. Because all the issues that we've all just talked about here about how do we, I'm open to it, how do we want to do it? I think there's openness to doing it, I think.
And what
Maybe
about the
subject to some-
technical aspect of it?
The technical's a whole big
That's a
issue.
big one.
That's
So-
maybe the biggest issue too.
So I mean, when you attended that one meeting, were there,
So they had multiple screens and
Okay.
I'd encourage everybody. It's actually kind of fun attending another communities meetings.
which
I've
one
been
was
doing.
this?
This was Moreland Hills.
Okay,
They had a couple different screens in the room, like say there was one here, one there, one there, that
okay.
you could see, and it was like a Zoom screen that those department heads were on there, and that was who chose to Zoom in for that meeting. I don't
Okay.
know the hows or whys, but it was like a little grid of them, and if it was their time to give their report, it they got the floor, so to speak, on that, and you watched, and they went back and forth and interacted. I think a meeting's one thing. Some of the discussions, it's tough. Like I remember when we were on Zoom, kind of patiently waiting, putting up your hand icon, waiting for that time. I think sometimes you lose it. I don't want to lose good people from being part of the process. But I do have some concerns, like, are we really able to pull that off well and have it function well?
Did you get any sense if they had a technician operating, was it Zoom? Were they using the Zoom
They were using, it
application?
looked like Zoom to me. I don't have the specifics. We could probably call it, but if we could ask, Mayor Spencer.
Scott's point, I think, is, a serious point
Yeah.
as to the
Very serious.
technological aspect of
Mhm.
this. One of the things that, and we're underway administratively, looking at this room and, the things that we've talked about before about revamping, these spaces and stuff. And when we get there, and, council obviously is going to be brought along as to where we arrive. Those are the things we're going to grapple with. To sort of hand this thing. I don't know.
Well,
I don't.
but for
It's a
committee
little
meetings,
premature.
putting aside this group,
Right.
but for other committees,
Right.
Parks and Beautification last night, there were how many people in attendance?
Just the three of us.
Three of us, right? So but if you, like we did during COVID, you post that, you're all in your individual, so it doesn't have to be the hybrid. It could be just on Zoom. And you don't lose a lot as opposed to here, I think you lose a lot. You could lose a lot more because we have department heads and
Right.
it's 7 of us, it's not 3 of us.
Mm,
So I wouldn't want to just don't do anything until we reconfigure this room. Because I think there's still opportunities, that and also for this, where it could still be functional. And maybe not necessarily hybrid, maybe just pure Zoom on occasion. And then all
The
you're looking,
screens and the sharing, it's more complicated than you're maybe
Well, during Zoom,
considering,
it
Jim.
is
That's all I know.
but Rick, for Zoom.
I don't
it
even
worked-
understand the technology to say it beyond that I know it's complicated.
But during Zoom, non-hybrid, it worked pretty well.
But everybody was on a Zoom.
That's what I'm saying.
Everybody had a. screen.
Non-hybrid, it's just
Right.
everyone's on Zoom. But on the committee meetings, some of the committee meetings, that could work.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
not-
The public
not
could
I agree.
chime
to have-
in, so
a
everyone's
mixture.
on Zoom.
But
I think
everybody
great.
would be on or everybody would be off.
Right,
That was the way I was thinking about it, but,
because we
this-
don't have this room configured to do it otherwise.
Yeah,
All right.
this was a question of more than one person, and in my judgment, all three of the people, I guess I let the cat out of the bag, all three of the people would be very good candidates to be, or very good participants if they were.
Well, obviously, we don't want to promote up anyone before everyone has been considered.
Well,
But
their names won't be stated.
that brings up, I think, so what I hear Jim saying is not a hybrid, either one way or the other way.
Yeah, for now.
I think that for now. I think there are like three levels of this thing, the technological, the philosophical, and maybe what are the expectations, sort of the premise that people applied for this thing. The technological, all right, you're saying it wouldn't be hybrid. So then you get down to more of the practical of, I think we did lose something when we were in Zoom, when everyone was in Zoom. It was not a great way of running meetings.
I agree.
And participating in meetings. And this commission is very important, obviously, and what they're going to be considering and doing. And I think we should optimize their engagement, not make it suboptimal. So I'm not comfortable with, I understand that I want everyone to participate if they could, but I'm not really comfortable but potentially degrading the quality of the conversation that's going to take place by going to a pure Zoom format that, everyone's going to be on Zoom then. I don't like that.
Well, what if we did this? Because they're going to be like 3 subcommittees, and the subcommittees having it on Zoom, but the whole group, you have to have it in person once a month at least to reconvene. And that way you can have the same, you can have remote meetings on the same night with the 3 people or whatever. And then you always
But they would
come
all have
back
to be-
once.
They'd all have to be public meetings.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, you all announce publicly, but then at least once a month, everybody get together
I like that.
in person, and that way you can work in your subcommittee and then come to the big
But the
committee.
subcommittee is simply a convenience that was described to sort of chop it up and make it go faster in some ways. What's happening in the subcommittee is the critical work of the committee. And I don't think
Or
that
they
saying,
can
it's
choose.
just a subcommittee diminishes, what the potential problem is of it not being an in-person engaged exchange that the public is also here for. I would hope that we get a lot of public attendance at these, publicized subcommittee meetings, so that if there's going to be public comment and discussion during those subcommittee meetings, that whole thing is sort of a robust face-to-face conversation.
But having that be available on Zoom, we're going to get more people attending those meetings.
That's a plus for
That's a big plus. So you'll have the 3 members of the subcommittee, and you could have 15, 20 people who say, hey, I'll dial in. All I have to do is do
it.
this.
That is definitely a plus, that broader participation.
We got
But
that.
there's a cost for that too.
But-
We saw that in our meetings.
But even in the Zoom era, there were some meetings where we had a lot of Zoom participants.
Yeah, I'm
And
not
part of it,
saying-
I think, was it's right there. I can just,
Right, we have people literally with bowl of popcorn resting on their stomach while they were participating.
Well, those people don't
We
have
went,
to
we
be
went the
on
whole
the
gamut,
screen.
and there was some scantily dressed, you could have put on a shirt.
When you're at the Zoom, as the controller, you decide who's on screen. You don't put like other people, just like the subcommittee members on screen.
But we don't want to make this a free-for-all. I would assume that we would have, the members would do their speaking, and then,
oh yeah, they're just,
and
Yeah. they're just-
observers.
right, they're observers, but they can make a comment at the end, like we do with audience participation. Right. But
But
They're
they
not
don't need
gonna
to
be
be
able
on
to
screen.
go back and
You can
forth.
choose who's on
Right, But there may
screen.
be a lot of comments from people.
that would be great. That
A
would be,
significant
that would be
portion of the
great.
meeting.
I would
That's
hope that
nice.
we would
I
have that.
I like Kathy's idea for that purpose at least, and it's a good, if it doesn't work, we can change course, but I think having more citizen participation, which I think we will get,
Yeah, I'll dial.
because you can just sit at home and dial in. I'd like to try it.
I used
It's
to
not a
like
bad
it.
idea. Otherwise, I want to ask who's going to run the Zoom.
That's,
Especially 3 at once, who are qualified people.
well, they can't be 3 at once.
Oh, you're right, they have to
It
be
has to be a
separate.
They have
public
to be
meeting.
It would have to be
But,
Yeah.
separate.
well, it's not, I mean, I've done it. It's not.
It's
that
not rocket
difficult,
science. I can
right?
do it.
Yeah.
I mean, all you do
Director
is you-
Sheila's sitting right here. It takes a lot of skill.
I resigned for that.
All you have to do is create a meeting, send an email out, and then start
And
the
hope
meeting
that-
when you're the host, and if
Oh,
you
the
want to
story
restrict
side.
people, you can
Imagine.
restrict people and let them in, and then decide who's going to be on screen, and then. that's pretty much it.
Well, there are three so your subcommittee, you're not
I'm not
on
in
this.
the.
I don't know the thing is, counselor liaison, someone's got to run the Zoom operation.
One of the volunteers actually will have to do it.
Yeah, it's a lot to do. It's a big responsibility.
Depending
Joe
on.
Mariola almost quit over running our Zoom meetings. He hated running our Zoom
And he
meetings.
did leave.
I'm
He
not
left
just
me
being
with it.
facetious. He really did not
Yeah.
like,
He did a good job, though.
he did a really good job. And it was tense because things happen in Zoom meetings.
Mhm.
It was the early
People
days.
crash into your
Yeah.
Zoom meetings. Not everyone
That's
so was polite. So now, it was nice having sort of the law enforcement guy.
He was also very technically
He
competent.
was very technically competent.
And that's what, I'm concerned about how it's gonna go. I mean, I'm pretty
Me too.
technically competent too, but I don't know exactly how you would do that, and especially have three of them.
Well, there wouldn't necessarily be three scheduled at the same time. That probably wouldn't happen.
Right.
No, we can't do that.
Well,
We
I think,
cannot have more than one at a time. That wouldn't be. right.
Okay, then, well, then.
and on a broader scale, I think a lot of people in the community, if we had better access electronically, we would have more participation. But it is going to, to me, it's going
Well,
to require looking into having somebody do it and to pay for it.
Is there not, I gotta believe this exists, a contract service that will run Zoom meetings for you?
That's a good question.
And I think the fee would not be very much. It's an hour of their time. And the setup is so automated now with Zoom. It's gotten so much better and easier and intuitive. And they would be the host master for the meeting, scheduled in advance, and they would run it, let people in.
I think we need to look at that.
That may be. But to bring this to a head, though, I would still like to have the legislation, at least Steve, start on that, so that we could have optionality on that to see what it looks like.
What was he drafting? I don't know what he's drafting.
He's drafting, permitting the city of Pepper Pike to allow public meetings to be held through electronic means. I think it's generic, and then we can decide which meetings we want to do that way. So for council right now, we'd say no. But if we allowed a subcommittee to say, that law would permit them to have a Zoom meeting for subcommittee meetings. And it may be the case that whoever is the chair of the big committee, whoever that's going to be, right? We don't know who it's
Whoever,
going to be. Would prefer to have that meeting always be in person. And it may be the same with a subcommittee, but I'd love the legislation to at least give optionality on that. I think it's going to move it faster, and I also think we're going to get more public participation, which is good.
I would think that the liaisons, part of their facilitation role might be to learn how to do a Zoom meeting. I mean, we're talking about,
But if they can't be there, I mean, finding a service who could do that
well, yes, that's true. If we can't
would
find
be
it.
the way to do this. And I
But I
gotta
can't-
believe that
I
exists.
can't
at this
believe
point.
that it's rocket science, even though they
No.
call it Zoom.
We might contact the people of Solon. I don't know if you've ever been to their city, their council chambers, but they apparently have a fairly complex setup. I don't know if they're doing things remotely now or not, but I'm sure we can find those things out.
They're big enough to have in-house staff though, so they probably have it staffed internally, unlike us.
I bet you they do.
Yeah, Beechwood staffs theirs.
Yeah, right.
Beechwood, yeah, but I was talking about
Solon has an IT division.
Okay. Well, if you look at their council chambers, it looks like they do.
Yeah, right.
So should we have Steve draft something for first reading next?
I would like to.
I would like to do that. I don't want to shut this down. We have two of our members who aren't here, who haven't been able to.
But
weigh
they'll be
in.
here, hopefully next time they'll think about it.
Well, he can draft something up and,
Yeah.
we'll
And
take a
there's
look
no
at
harm
it,
in
and play with it
not
next
I'm not
month.
opposed to
at it.
looking to a draft. I am still on the fence with
It's a-
the,
Understood.
like,
Yeah.
I'm
And I think,
I'm in favor of just in-person everything. I really think it's how bodies function.
I'm much more in
best.
line with you, Emmy. on
So
I think if it's something that is, it should be in person unless there's some extenuating circumstances. That's my personal.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I want to, like, I'm
But then you're- then you have
open-minded
a
to
hybrid.
read a draft of
Right.
something, but
But we can't do that now. because
Right,
we don't
yeah,
have the
tough now,
technology, but
right.
in the future.
Right.
Yeah. But no, we just have to recognize for now, it has to be one or the other because we're not set up.
This is an
But I-
either or ordinance. He's.
Right.
I think ultimately, even if we have it drafted next month,
That's first reading.
well, first, no, but I'm saying the applications are due by
Right.
what, the 29th? I
Right.
mean,
That's why we can't slow anything down. Just,
it,
It's not
like,
gonna slow anything down.
but so then what are you going to tell the members
Well,
who were asking about it? Are you going to say
we're
like
not-
it's a maybe or it's?
No, we're gonna have all the applications hopefully by the 29th.
Mhm,
Then we're gonna discuss them in June
right,
and have the first meeting, the organizational meeting in July. So during June, we can figure out whether we're gonna allow the meetings to be remote or not.
okay.
And we're not slowing anything down, because
Yeah.
the deadline for applications is still the deadline. And we weren't gonna take them up until the first meeting in June when we have that executive session.
But my question is more the people who are on the fence about participating because it is in person versus Zoom. I don't, I
They
wouldn't
still
want
have
to
to
lead
be
them on that it's
available.
going to actually be.
you
in
couldn't make
Zoom.
them any promises.
That's just it.
Oh, no,
Like-
I wouldn't. I'd say we're gonna discuss it, but it's not,
We're not, okay. We're not sure where that's
Right.
heading.
That's-
Okay,
well,
I just want to make sure that.
what else could I
we're-
tell them?
Right.
Yeah.
And in the end,
Fair enough.
in the end, listening to this conversation, it sounds like it's not even council that's ultimately making that decision. It's going to be the commission itself
Right,
is going to make judgments
Right.
about
Right.
it.
If we
So
have the
certainly
legislation in
there
place
can be
to
no
allow it.
promises made.
Yeah.
to Anybody.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
If we can take a look at something next meeting.
Yeah.
Proposal.
All right.
And then do we also have to talk about if we do that to purchase a Zoom membership, or do we still have that Zoom membership?
I don't even know.
Well,
That's not a
Okay.
big deal.
Oh,
we'll do it.
That's not a big deal. One way, if it ends up there, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. We're going to move on then to committees and department heads. We had a finance committee meeting tonight.
Can I
Jim?
back you up just for 1 second? I'm willing to do whatever legwork needs to be done to figure this out. So if anybody knows of any resources that I can contact, if you just email them to me, I would be willing to
Run meetings.
run the meeting, yeah. Right,
Okay.
and.
Okay.
I'd be
Zoom
happy
or-
to try to look into that too. I'd be happy to look into that.
Yeah, it's sort of a communications committee thing.
That's
Oh, yeah, we do. Yes.
Okay. Moving on, Jim, do you have a
Yes.
report for tonight's?
Yeah, we had a finance committee meeting at 7:00 tonight. Very brief review with Joe, very close to budget. No particular quirks or anomalies. Very strong cash position. So good shape. Joe, good job.
Okay. We did not have a planning commission meeting this month, so still nothing to report on that. There is, Emmy said that she's basically given a report already, so we're done with that.
Yes, thank you.
I think that is all the committees, unless I'm missing something, shout it out. Department heads, where's Stanley? Anyone? Got anything? Okay. Chief already reported. Police chief is unavoidably absent this evening. Sends his apologies and his greetings to all. This afternoon, or today, you all should have received a email from MK, with the MKSK information that you had requested at the last meeting. I think you will recognize, if you've not already read it, that they have an extremely impressive background in the world of park design and development of all sorts, shapes and sizes. So that's been sent out to you for your consideration. The biggest thing happening in the world of the Centennial right now is that you've seen that our Centennial signs have been, or what do you call those? Banners? Banners? Banners are displayed. We've really gotten a wonderful reaction from people about them. So I appreciate everyone's support on that. Something that will be coming to council for is we need more of a budget. We've decided. We've been able, things like the, not a big one, but things like the banners, those can get incorporated under things like the street programs they hang on the streets, things like that. But we probably need authorization for like a $20,000 budget so that, you know, as these things get planned, we can spend the money on it and not, you know, worry about what are we gonna, you know, fit this under. It just makes sense. We need to appropriate, you know, 20, 30 max, I'm thinking, but I'm comfortable with 20 of, so that Joe can, you know, do this thing calmly without puckering on.
What are the buckets of stuff that's?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Buckets of
ask.
stuff, like, let me give you some examples. The plan right now, and this was the big event we're coming up from the Centennial Committee would be the ice cream social is being converted to become the Centennial Social or whatever the name's going to be. What they'd like to do is for the small children, since it's going to have many aspects similar to what you might recognize as our ice cream social, to have little kid T-shirts to be able to give to the little kids as a gift. Pepper Pike grocery tote bags for the residents. Now, none of these are big dollar items in and of themselves, but they have to get appropriated and paid for in order to do it. We're going to buy a time capsule that at the end of the process, probably in October, and that to load that up and have some ceremony to bury this thing to be open in 100 years. That costs money, things like that, to buy a commemorative rock with a plaque on it, those sort of things.
What was the actual date of the founding?
It's October. It was October. I don't know it was early October,
Okay.
if I recall.
So it is a calendar year.
There is this is the calendar year, yes.
No, but it's a fiscal year because it has a beginning and an ending other than
Yes.
January 1st and December
Yes.
31st.
Yeah. So we're treating the whole year. There may be something that you've seen in your emails in the Pepper Pike Post that everyone solicited. I hope everyone on council at a minimum will take advantage of this. We need send in a picture. What the committee would like to do is have like this montage. We talked about it last week of just the faces of Pepper Pike. And it doesn't have to be you don't even give a biography with it, so that there's some record of who we are as a city. That, we're not the, couple hundred farmers of 100 years ago who made this city. It's a much more diverse and, dynamic population that we have today than we did then. And like I said in my letter that I sent out to the community, in 100 years, what we do today and enclose in things like that time capsule, that is the history that people will be looking at. And it's a good thing that we're engaged in this process. We are hopefully going to get some responses from people about their century homes. I don't even know that it has to just be century homes. We have some incredible mid-century homes in this community. I think the century homes are really neat, and some of them go back to the mid-19th century, actually, a couple of them. But we featured in our Fun Fact Friday a couple of weeks ago the Pepper Ridge neighborhood. That is just it's kind of a famous mid-century designed neighborhood, by the architect who did it. And it's just, these things should be celebrated and recorded. This Fun Fact Friday, you'll see in a couple days, is fantastic. It's of Ursuline College. And we've been able to take advantage of our wonderful department member, Tara Carlson down in Building, who received her master's in historic restoration from Ursuline. And, she's been able to provide us the background of a lot of the research she did. This is part of her program about that college. And it's just a very in-depth Fun Fact Friday that's, really focuses on what that college is. And those acres are a critical part of our community. And people should appreciate what it is. And something that I've worked for years with the president of the college I want them, and I think all of us want them to be more integrated into the community so that people recognize we are fortunate to have this college as part of our community. It's really important. And it's important that it thrive. We saw what happened just a few miles down the road with Notre Dame College. And suddenly that acreage is up for sale. We want Ursuline College to thrive, ladies and gentlemen. And it is doing well right now, but we have to make sure it continues to do well. And our celebration of it helps make it do well. Kathy?
So next month, our first council meeting is on Juneteenth. Is that still happening?
On Juneteenth?
Yeah.
I did not observe that yet.
And then the Taste of Pepper Pike's on the 23rd. What if at the next council meeting, like you have like kind of a breakdown of everything and then a budget, and then we can vote on it then?
I'm not opposed to a larger budget for our centennial. I think it's really a
Yeah.
once in a lifetime celebration that we can be having. I want to understand what that's going to be going towards.
That's
and-
why I just was.
Yeah, I understand,
thinking-
but I'd like to see it a little bit more spelled out. Like, this is what we're anticipating. These are the events, like something that, not just for us as council people, perhaps lending to the budget for it, but also so that the community can really get engaged and excited about the celebration. So,
Yeah. It's not all planned. I can't give you a lot, all in common, because they continue to meet
sure.
and they continue to plan. And so
What if just
In-
for the next
And the
council
who
meeting?
is,
It
I don't think
is-
I've ever
it
found out
is-
who was on the committee.
it
for that.
is on Wednesday, June 19th. You're right. We need to do something about that.
I mean, I'm happy to meet that day, but it is a national
All right,
holiday for people.
it's a national holiday. There are other national holidays that
Let's
the world
change
doesn't close
Yeah.
down for. Is everyone okay if we meet on June 19th? Is everyone okay with
Yeah.
that?
It's
I don't know.
Okay.
I
The ci-
prefer not to.
Okay. The city is participating with Ursuline College
right.
the weekend before to celebrate Juneteenth. That is on,
June 16th, 17th.
is it on June 16th? I think it's on I think it's on Sunday, no, that's Father's Day. It must be on June 15th, Saturday, I think. We'll get that date. I think it's June 15th. The,
Yeah, it looks like it's on the calendar.
Or is
for
it
June
June 18th?
15th at 11 to 3 p.m. at Ursuline.
on which date?
The 15th,
It
Saturday.
is the 15th, okay. So we are having and that's something I had the city partner up with the college a couple of years ago. I know Mr. LeMay spoke at it one year. I think he enjoyed that experience.
Mhm.
And we had it's a good thing for the city to be participating in. It's important. Okay, so we'll probably be back to council next month with something about that. This Monday, this coming Monday is, of course, Memorial Day. Our speaker on Memorial Day is Dr. Walter Naki, a local area psychologist. Dr. Naki has been a leader in the development and treatment of PTSD of veterans for his entire career, from World War I to Vietnam, Korea, the Middle East conflicts. He's treated people from all of them, and in the course of his career. He's he's a really good guy. I got to visit his office and meet with him personally to discuss this. I encourage everyone to come to the Memorial Day commemoration on Monday at 10 o'clock. We'll, of course, be hosting the Orange High School Band and Lionettes. And they always provide wonderful music of a patriotic nature, including all of the service songs. We will have our first responders leading a honor guard to raise the flag and the playing of taps at the conclusion of the ceremony. If anyone here has not yet been to our commemoration, I encourage you to come this year. It's very nice. We don't do parades and make it a party. We treat it as what it is, a memorial, a commemoration of people who gave up their lives for this country, so this country could be a democratic, free society. That's about all I have for this evening. I think that's the most important. In case of rain, the ceremony does go forward. Our fallback is either in the Pepper Pike Pavilion in the park, or we will retreat to the service bays, actually. We'll take the trucks out if it's that severe of a storm. But hopefully it's not that severe of a storm, and the pavilion is available. And best of all, I hope we can be up front where we've been able to be every year so far. And Council, do you have any comments? That concludes mine.
I have one.
Yeah.
It's a question. Sheila, I know we're up to 18 by your last email.
19.
19.
Yes,
One came in
yes.
between the have any of them come in through the mail, or have they all been electronic?
2 of them have been mailed in. The rest have been emailed.
Okay. And do you get the sense that the ones that were emailed were ones that got the electronic, or, got the email and sent them back, or?
We got probably a half dozen before the mail started hitting, and then we got another wave, but I'm not sure if they were just procrastinating or if they got it in the US mail and decided to
Well, it
go
was a
online.
fill-in form, I understand, from
Yeah,
online, so
they're-
you could tell whether they just filled them in and sent them back.
Well, the ones that were emailed, I mean, it's hard to tell if they
Oh.
printed it, filled it out. And, yeah,
And I'd like everybody to know that I got my packet in the mail on Monday,
wow.
This Monday?
this Monday.
Yeah,
I may have been the last
I got
one
mine,
to get it.
I got mine the next day.
2 weeks ago.
That they said that the mail went out.
I kept looking for it, and it finally came.
Has any in
Monday.
the audience not received one? Looks like everyone. You were last man standing. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah.
They knew I didn't need it. I wrote it.
I have a question for Don again. Do you know when they're gonna finish at the circle over there on
Nope.
Gates Mills?
I do not.
You don't
I'm
know?
not gonna
They
pass
haven't
on
been
that.
around the last few days.
They were there today.
Oh, they were.
Yeah, they were out there.
A whole bunch of people were there today.
Do you know what they're gonna do with the road segments that they've cut out? Are they gonna repave
Yes.
over it?
They have to repair them. They have a detail for what they need to do.
Okay.
They have to
Is-
repave and re-landscape. They have to do it all.
I will ask, because I know that there are a couple places that they put a steel plate down where that is. I travel that area of Gates Mills constantly. Is there any way can we request them to put a steel plate there? It's like,
Yeah,
once that gravel rolls out, I mean, it's a pretty, granted, I drive a Jeep, so there's never a smooth ride, but it's pretty significant.
Yeah.
I know both Jim and I have talked to them about doing something to hold the material down.
And right now, there's a lot of big gravel pieces on the circle, and it's dangerous for the bikers because I see them trying to bike and avoid them, and I just don't want an accident to happen.
We've had those conversations with the contractor and with the, our rep from Dominion.
Yeah.
The new company name, what it's called, Enbridge, I guess.
Okay.
We've had that.
We'll have the conversations again.
Yeah, thanks, Don.
If they,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have one thing, and sitting in front of you is a red line of the changes to the sign ordinance since last week. There's a couple additions I added I wanted to go through because I want to finalize this for the planning commission meeting, which is next week, right? June,
Whatever the first Monday in June.
June 3rd, yeah. So let me just walk through these to you, with you. Hopefully we just can consensus on it. Nothing, page 1, nothing
Yeah,
page.
there's one on page 1, aesthetics.
I know that's a change. That wasn't a different change. That's what.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to point out a couple of different things I did. So go to page 3, section 1269.03, item A. So Jackie had suggested, I think it's a good change, in calculating the sign area, make it more descriptive. I added the language "and does not display any message." So basically it says, the sign area is calculated based on the sign face, provided that a proportional base framing or similar
Jim,
structure.
I don't have a 1269.
Yeah, I don't have that.
You don't have page 3?
No.
Not what you're reading.
What's the?
So it's 1269.03,
That's
measurement determinations.
At the top of page 3.
I have 01
This,
and
this
then
thing skips
04.
from
It just
Yeah, I
put in the
do.
copier in there.
to 04.
yeah.
Wow. Hang on.
Yeah, I'm missing that.
Wow. I just copied that using the machine in there. Mine didn't skip. All right,
How many pages should we have altogether?
let me go make that page. Now that page has just got skipped in the machine.
I have 6 pages altogether.
Yeah. let me go- I'm
Yeah,
gonna
six.
cover it. Let me just, What else? So let's just go through this. quick. So the next page has general provisions in the middle. 04, you have that.
This one.
Yeah, we have 04.
And then the next page is the box at the bottom. You have that.
Yeah,
Next page, box at the top. You have that.
It's like page 2.
and then window
And
sign.
then you have
Signed signature?
6909.
No,
No.
You don't have post 6909?
No.
That is weird.
then we have
Machine gets
signature
those two
page.
pages.
We do audience comments while we're waiting
We should probably just-
and number the pages.
While we're in, while we're in discussion, while we're in verbal readings, it wouldn't be bad to have page numbers, even on the plan.
No one take that in.
When do the Browns start?
They started OTAs this week.
Yeah, round 2.
That's very strange.
Then they got their mini cams, then they got their full cams.
Football season.
Any other
Don't
comments?
rush it. Geez, oh man.
The council?
You're pushing that along pretty quick.
I haven't been to an Indians, Guardians game.
Me neither. They just start, I think they're still like in the first week of playing.
My wife wanted to go away. I said, no, June 1st, we get tickets. We're going to the game.
I tell you, nobody's supporting it, the monsters. They're on the verge of winning the cup again. Nobody supporting it.
What's your question, Mr. Warner?
Well, Sheila took charge since I was failed at copy making earlier, and so she will be entering shortly with complete copy.
All right, so we know what your skill set is not.
A good man knows his limitations.
Gots to know your limitations.
Can we do audience comments while we're waiting?
Pardon? Well, I just wanted to go,
Why don't you skip to, since everyone has,
she has my version.
oh. Here, you can use mine.
Well, she doesn't have the, just wait a second, she'll be done fast. We'll go
Cody
through-
and I will share.
We'll go through in good order. But no one has a complete copy.
No, but we can go through the other pages.
We can go through the others and then you can catch up to what's missing. Exactly. the doctor understood my point.
Okay, very good. So out of order.
Page 4.
So the other change is the page 3, which starts at the top with the 1 in parentheses signs.
Okay,
So the only change that we didn't discuss last week is in number 5. So in terms of the signs turning off, I limited it to freestanding signs. So it's the monument signs rather than if they have some sign, some light over their address or, so this narrows it to just what I was worried about in terms of traffic, and it's the signs next to the roadway only. So that just narrows it. We didn't discuss that last week, but that was my original intent when I put that in there. Any comments on that? Everyone good with that as a restriction, as a narrowing of that turn off?
so it reads all illumination of freestanding signs.
Right. Only, so it's not a wall sign, it's not, so it's, there are other signs that are permitted. That's the one I was, for safety and other reasons.
And
that's the
and that
other
would
one.
be a light shining up at it
Yeah, the monument
or
signs,
lights from the sign itself?
either.
What are you gonna do on Christmas Eve when the church lights up its sign and it's midnight mass or whatever? They have to turn their sign off? I'm just,
We'll discuss that.
okay.
Maybe you should raise that to planning of the holiday exception. I'm counting on you. All right. The other, going on to the next page, the top where the chart is, number 9, there is not a change. I simply moved it so that all the relevant provisions relating to changeable copy are in the same place. And you'll see that here in a moment. I'm sure the machine
Get
didn't
all
do it
new
to you,
ones.
Sheila.
No, of course not. That machine loves me.
This is a bit thicker.
Yeah.
Everyone gets
Oh, look, there's a page 2.
it.
Maybe we
All
should
right.
number the pages.
So the only thing we haven't discussed then is on the third page,
Yeah.
1269.03, sign area dimension. So we discussed last week that to clarify, I think Jackie had the suggestion, we added the words in calculating the sign area, so it's very clear. But just to, for further clarification, the way this works is, it says, provided however, that a proportional base, framing, or similar structure adjacent to the sign face, and I added, and does not display any message. So I don't want the implication being that you can have a bigger sign. So I put 2 decorative columns next to my sign. Those should just be decorative columns with not signage on them. So you don't get a bigger sign because of these framing and other things. So that's a change we did discuss. I think it's clarifying what the intent is.
What is the arrow with the circle?
That's my notes to myself, since you have my original now in your hands. I was
No, that
pointing
was
out the
copied.
new changes. And so that was, and so the other change on page, the page with the big box at the top, there's a red line number 9, but I simply moved that from 2 pages later because it related to changeable copy, and I wanted to put all the changeable copy signs in the same section, just for ease of reference. So that's not a change in.
Yep.
That's nothing we did, we discussed that, I just relocated it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we added traffic circle, roundabout, or intersection, which is, we all discussed last
All
time.
right, since this is not on the agenda tonight to amend, and we're in a council meeting, can we amend this thing, or should I just get assent of everyone? If no one objects, this is the version. we'll-
You can take a motion to
Can I?
amend legislation, even if it's not on the agenda.
I can?
Somebody could say that you're out of order and then you could amend the agenda, but if everybody agrees to just
All
go
right.
with the flow and make the
So I'll
change.
make the motion to amend the proposed sign ordinance changes to what you see in front of you at this meeting.
Second,
A second.
All right. Roll call. please.
Mr. Noel?
yes.
Ms. Zatrek?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
And so what I will do, I'll do a cumulative red line for the planning committee with the changes here and the changes from last week that aren't here. So they have the total changes from the existing ordinance.
Yeah, and you need to change the caption to say as amended or something.
Well, we need to have the number of the ordinance. If you will get me the things that you have, my office will format
Okay.
it properly so that so that Sheila's happy.
I will-
That's,
I will-
that's the
I will-
goal of,
I will
that's
send
the
you-
goal of my legal practice is to make
We're gonna use
Sheila
a law
happy.
director. How novel. I like that.
Just throwing it out there.
Can you number the pages too?
I will,
We do that.
we can do that. All right, thank you.
I encourage everyone to utilize our law director. All right, anyone else on council?
No, but Jim, I want to thank you for your work on this. I wasn't here last week to see the introduction, but I listened to everybody's comments and I like where this is going. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, any audience comments? Or else we're out of here. Heidi? Say your
I wasn't
name.
here last
Say-
week, so
say your
Heidi
name.
Arnold, 30496 West Anderwood Drive. In a real quick way, we have a great sign at Landwood Plaza. So the only other signs that we're talking about going electric are at the churches, in a nutshell, before having to dive any deeper. Is that correct?
School, library.
Which I already have them, so that's cool. Okay. And the other one really fast was in terms, you guys were talking about subcommittees and all of this and hybrid meetings, in person, if it's just a main committee. What have we decided? I think the most important part is council, like these meetings. When Scott couldn't be here, we have 2 missing people tonight. Is that still something to be decided?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
People to vote, people that are on Zoom, audience members, but we
That,
talked specifically about committees and charter review committees and those things. Greater picture, I think that's important to the residents, is council meetings and how this all operates.
it would simply, what Mr. Byron is drafting, as I understood the direction of council, is simply an ordinance that is going to be authorizing the city to conduct a meeting in its entirety by Zoom, not a hybrid.
So you either are all here or you're not.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Judy?
Judy Knapp, 2632 Sun Center Road. I may be oversimplifying this.
Can you talk
but-
really loud, Judy? I can't hear
Oh,
you.
sorry. The county library has dozens of Zoom licenses. You go online, Cuyahoga County, countylibrary.org. You click in 2 places, pick your day, pick your length of time, and it takes about 2 or 3 minutes, because I've set up meetings this way. There's no charge. It's a service of the library, and they immediately send you a link, and then you forward it on to whoever is on your list to participate in meetings, whether it's committee people, council people, residents, and it takes 3 minutes.
Thank you, Judy.
And I'm wondering also if Lou from the Board of Education, from the school district, if he does their tech work, if he's a tech person, he seems to be the logical choice. But I would definitely recommend the county library.
No, that's a
Thank
good
you, Judy.
suggestion. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone? We're adjourned.
Oh, it's not even 9. What do I do?
Let's go ahead. Let's go get a drink.
Yeah.